Hi, my name is Kevin de León, or as the Sacramento Bee likes to call me, an unnamed source. You know. But I want to thank you very much for having me as your first guest, the luncheon this year. I do understand that the governor historically is always the first guest. I did speak with the governor, and I don't want you to worry because he has cleared me to represent him here today. So everything that I'm going to say today, the governor has fully endorsed it. So. But as Joseph Pulitzer famously said, our republic and its press will either rise or it will fall together. And it is in that spirit that I do welcome a chance to address each and every one of you. And I do look forward to a healthy relationship over the next few years in the spirit of our great democracy. Now, I appreciate the Sacramento Press Club's efforts in funding scholarships for students to pursue journalism, and I'm glad that today's gathering goes towards this very, very important cause. Now, yesterday, the Senate Democrats wrapped up a two-day policy conference where we focused on several pathways to opportunity. Opportunity for all Californians to fully participate in our state's economic resurgence. I like to call these the 4 E's. The 4 E's that are the foundation of the Senate's policy agenda for this session. Economic growth, the education, energy, and equity. First, California's innovative economy. Our economy has rebounded quite tremendously, and it continues to grow. We just passed Brazil to occupy the 7th largest GDP in the world. Unemployment is at its lowest levels since the Great Recession, hovering around 7%. Our state budget, as we all know, is in much, much better shape. But as we contemplate the good things that we have experienced as of late as a state, we must also be very conscious of another less comfortable fact, and that is that too many Californians are simply not a part of this economic growth. Income inequality in the state of California, the 7th largest GDP in the world, is real. And there's no place in the country where it's starker than in California. Now, unemployment rate as well as poverty rates are still too high compared to the rest of the nation. The bottom line is when we leave some behind, we all lose. And it is too expensive to be poor in California. My Senate colleagues and I are focused on ways Californians can fully participate in our state's economic resurgence and achieve, in fact, the true California dream. Now, we want to grow our middle class through education and job training to provide the skill sets that are required by businesses today. With a highly educated, diverse workforce, California's economy will be set for takeoff. And one thing we've learned is that austerity alone won't build our economy. Our key question, one that we should all wrestle with, not just elected officials, but all Californians. With limited resources, how can we strategically target investments to make the quality of life better in disproportionately impacted communities throughout the state of California? While we focus on restoring our safety net that was shredded during the Great Recession, the Senate has also been focused on improving the quality of life for the tens of thousands of Californians who have been marginalized in this economy. Now, one example is SB, Senate Bill 535, a measure that I authored that created the Cal Enviro Screen and will target at least 25% as a floor, not a ceiling, of cap-and-trade funds to disproportionately impacted communities that have been identified by, in fact, the Cal Enviro Screen. Not surprisingly, most of these are also turned out to be in the state's poorest neighborhoods. They have historically been the dumping ground for environmental hazards for decades, resulting in unclean water, dirty air, and little to no park space. This is the type of strategic investment that uses our current resources efficiently and tackles income inequality. Not only will this approach clean up some of the most polluted communities, it will create jobs, improve the quality of life in areas that suffer from some of the country's highest unemployment rates. Now, second, education. Education is the greatest equalizer we have. Equal access to a free public education is what established our great democracy and put us on a pathway to be the world's premier super economic power. We as policymakers must do everything we can to prioritize access to the best public education system in the world, where every Californian, regardless of who you are and regardless of where you come from, can have a real opportunity to succeed. Every kid deserves a fair shot. Every kid deserves a fair shot to attend a public university that's both accessible and affordable. It is fiscally prudent. Now, let me underscore, it is very fiscally prudent that we make this investment because the returns are felt for generations. And the opposite is also true. If we fail to educate our children, there'll be serious ramifications for generations, and it won't be pretty. We need to make sure that all of our kids can either graduate from a 4-year university or have a pathway to a career technical training. And this is critical to our economy. Now, I know this debate is the hottest topic in the state capitol right now, but Senate Democrats strongly believe in more funding for higher education. We believe in accessibility. We believe in affordability. We believe that students need to be given the necessary tools to graduate college in 4 years. Now, Senator Marty Block and I have introduced SB, Senate Bill 15, and it is a comprehensive plan to just do that. Whether our California students attend a 2-year or a 4-year school, they must have access to the necessary resources to meet their goals and support to meet their goals. More importantly, the state must work to make higher education affordable for all families and recognize that affordability is not just about tuition. While tuition is of great concern, the state's financial aid system does not invest in the total cost of education. That includes books, that includes housing, that includes transportation. And let me be very clear, we will not support any tuition tax hike on the backs of our California students. Now, we look forward to having these conversations and implementing an agenda that addresses access, affordability, and completion for all students at the University of California, the Cal State, as well as our community colleges. Now, thirdly, energy and the environment. When working to ensure prosperity for all, we also need to look ahead and lay the foundation for the new economy. Now, that is why my Senate colleagues and I are committed to California's leadership on low carbon policies. Since Washington, D.C. remains gridlocked, California is driving the development of a new economy, a 21st century economy. During my recent visit to Lima, Peru, for the United Nations Climate Change Conference, it became even clearer than ever that urgent action on climate drives positive outcomes in the state of California. Good paying, clean energy jobs, it protects our public health and ensures a better future for our children. Our state's cap and trade program sets the global standard for investment in alternative energy and increasingly protects consumers from the whims and gyrations of the global oil market. Now, we have proven in California, irrespective of the naysayers, that in fact we can grow our economy, hence the position that we currently hold at the 7th largest GDP, while at the same time simultaneously make sure that we can move forward very progressive, forward-thinking climate change policies. Efforts to undermine California's climate leadership undermines the future of our economy. I want to underscore that one more time. Any effort to undermine California's climate leadership undermines the future of our economy and all the jobs that we have gained so far to currently hold the position that we do, 7th largest GDP in the world. Now, we need to continue to build this new economy because this is where the jobs need to be, in the most hard-hit areas in California. Districts such as mine, the Central Valley, Inland Valley Empire. This new green economy has to hit the ground and put people back to work. Clean energy jobs are the fastest pace of any industry, are growing at the fastest pace of any industry, and we need to find ways to keep these jobs growing in California. Now, lastly, equity. Now, tackling income inequality is not only about creating jobs. We also need to support working families so they can take that job. Millions of parents, especially women and single mothers, face impossible choices every single day. Without reliable childcare, they can't go to work, and without work, they cannot provide for their families. This impacts our economy. When women do not do well, our economy can never reach its full potential. Hardworking mothers and childcare providers are heroes to me, and we need to make sure that they have the support that they need. And that's why, as mentioned a few moments ago, I will pursue childcare legislation that will create more childcare slots for working families. Access to high-quality childcare and early education strengthens the economy by helping mothers who are struggling to balance work as well as family obligations. Now, I know this personally, given the fact that you all know my story as as the youngest child of a single immigrant mother with a third-grade education. Oftentimes, I was left alone at the house since the age of 5 years old, while my mother worked her fingers to the bone, cleaning homes in the wealthiest enclaves in America, La Jolla as well as Coronado. And women struggle mightily every single day because they have to make a very difficult choice. Do I go out to work and leave my child alone? Do I provide income for my family? Do I pay for the rent over the roof for my child's head and put the clothes on my child's back and put the food on the table? Or do I go on some type of public service? Well, I would guess that the vast majority of these women, if not almost all these women, want to work. But we have to provide the resources needed so they can become part of this great economy that is the economy of California. Now, these are some of our priorities as we work to make sure our economic growth reaches all Californians. Now, I do want to talk about the legislative process. In the State of the Union, the President spoke of a future that looks a lot like California today. The future of America is present-day California. We have led the country. We have led the country on environmental issues. We have led the country on criminal justice reform. We have led the country on energy, on workers' rights, including paid sick leave as well as the minimum wage. And we have led as well on equal rights for all. So the work we do here in Sacramento matters. While this legislative body is the nation's policy laboratory, one thing that we don't always do so well is look back after our bills have been signed into law to make certain they're working as intended. The responsibility of a legislator does not end when the ink of a governor's signature dries on their bill. Oversight and accountability. Oversight and accountability is not the job of a small group of individuals in a room. Oversight and accountability is the job and the responsibility of every senator and every staff member of a policy committee as well as a fiscal committee in the California State Senate. Now, during my first several months as pro tem, I've asked our committees to look back at the major programs within their jurisdiction and spend the year evaluating their effectiveness and propose improvements if needed. To ensure government is working efficiently as well as effectively, we need to incorporate consistent and sustained oversight of all state government. Now, the stakes are too high for us not to get it right. And I grew up in a neighborhood that's living proof of what happens when we get it wrong. What happens when public policy lets a community, a neighborhood, a people fail? The California legislature is exceptional, and we need to concentrate on the quality and not so much the quantity of our work. Now, the Sacramento Press Club plays a very crucial role in holding the legislature accountable for these same reasons and many more. And you cover state policies with global impact and keep our large and very diverse state informed of the challenges facing us. The work we do here in Sacramento matters. It matters not just regionally, not just statewide, not just nationally, but it matters worldwide. In the Senate, we're keenly aware of the role we play in securing opportunity for all. This year, we're looking at every way that we can strengthen full economic participation for all Californians. I do want to thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart for having me here today to discuss the several pathways of opportunity. And I do look forward very much to answering your questions. Now, I'm honored to be in one of the best elected offices in this country, the California State Senate. I do look forward to having a close, honest working relationship with our press corps here in Sacramento. And I want to work with each and every one of you to make sure that we're getting the people's business done here in Sacramento. With that, thank you very much. I'm honored to be here and look forward to the questions that you may have of me. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Alan Young from the Business Journal. Didn't want to catch you in a Rubio sip heard around the world moment, so
No,
take a break.
I'm just getting used to my glasses too.
I'd like to chat about your thoughts around economic growth from the private sector perspective. As you know, businesses typically have two priorities when it comes to state government: tax breaks, tax cuts, and regulatory reform. Can you tell us what we might expect this year on those subjects, including but not limited to CEQA reform?
A couple thoughts. One, obviously, we just surpassed both Russia and Italy. And now we just recently, a few weeks ago, we surpassed Brazil to occupy the 7th largest GDP in the world. Things are going very well in California. It speaks to the resiliency of our state economy. Now, I know a lot of businesses have, for a whole variety of reasons, put forward critiques or complaints of certain regulations, over-regulation, or the issue of CEQA. I can tell you one thing is that I will be focused, and the Senate will be focused on economic growth. We want to do so in a manner that doesn't compromise the environment. We want to do so in a manner that provides real and tangible jobs for everyday Californians. We surely don't want to be put in a position where we're leveraged with any other state or any other country to provide any tax breaks or tax credits. The tax credits, I do support them conceptually, but it has to be the right tax credit with the right methodology that provides accountability, verifiability, and you can quantify the actual results of jobs that have been created. I was the lead negotiator with the Hollywood tax credit, and also I played a role with the tax credit between it was Boeing as well as Northrop. Now, we want to keep jobs in California, but we want to grow the economy. We want to make sure that if there are certain regulations that are no longer germane, perhaps they were at one time 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and if they're duplicative and they make no sense today, then I think we're very open to streamlining and making it much more efficient, especially the permitting process. Now, with regards to CEQA, CEQA has been one of the most vexing issues here in Sacramento. Now, CEQA is a very polemic and polarizing issue, no doubt about it. And what makes it so hard is you have very well-meaning individuals who, frankly, have very divergent points of views on how to go about CEQA reform, or those who do not want CEQA reform at all whatsoever. Now, I know that Senators Hill, Wachowski, as well as Jackson are drafting a legislation right now with regards to CEQA reform, and I can say that I am looking forward to see what they produce. I will say this, that I can see that CEQA reform in some version will come out of the Senate this legislative session.
Question over here.
Hi, Senator. Dan Smith from the Sacramento Bee. You mentioned that austerity alone can't rebuild the economy, and I'm wondering about your feelings on the governor's budget proposal with regard to social services. You believe the legislature and the Democratic caucus in the Senate specifically will work to increase the amount that the state budget provides for SSI, child care, and other such programs?
Yeah, I think the governor has a very well-deserved reputation of being miserly with the fiscal purse strings. It's a well-deserved reputation. I think that the austerity that I made reference to in my speech, it was collectively done, not just the governor, but it was also with the legislative body, both the Senate as well as the Assembly. Part of the fiscal prudence was not just done in a unilateral fashion, but it was done in a collective fashion with co-equal branches, the governor, executive branch, as well as the legislative branch. Now, we have seen, obviously, the budget proposal that he has put forth. The last 2 days, my colleagues in the Senate Democratic Caucus have convened to talk about what I just mentioned a few moments ago: economic growth, energy, education, as well as equity. Now, austerity alone is simply not going to help those who are the most marginalized get off their feet and become part of the economic mainstream in California. So I do believe that certain targeted strategic human capital investments are needed. Austerity alone is simply not going to help these folks who are economically marginalized at this moment. And this is what the budget process is going to be for. We're going to go back and forth, and I'm looking forward to that process.
Do you think there should be increases?
I do think there should be increases. I also am keenly aware that the way the budget functions and with Prop 98, the vast majority of the dollars due to our economic growth will be going into K through 14. You know, K through 12, K through 14. Obviously, community colleges are a big winner in this budget because of the automatic pilot that we have in Prop 98. So obviously, even though we have much more money, we're in the black. Obviously, the resources are finite. There's not a lot to play with. So, you know, we have to look at, you know, in a very prudent fashion, how much do we actually really have to play with realistically, and which target investments make the most sense to get a bigger rate of return in human capital investments for California. So, I mean, that sort of, what do you call the, when you paint the, that canvas is still wide open right now, but the canvas will be filled in with some color. We just have to figure out what color it's going to be.
Hey, Senator Ben Adler, Capital Public Radio. Wanted to get your reaction to the PPIC poll's findings that Californians appear to be open, a majority of them open to both extending Prop 30 and the split roll for Prop 13. Are either of those things on your to-do list in this year or in this two-year session?
What's on the to-do list is to have a discussion, first and foremost. I think it's a little premature to talk about any type of revenue enhancements at this moment. I am keenly aware that Proposition 30 will sunset with regards to sales in 2017. PIT, personal income tax, will sunset in 2019. We are projected to have a small budget deficit in fiscal year 18-19, and that's assuming, obviously, that there is no, you know, economic recession and everything falls perfectly well. That being said, we know in the global market, the way we live in, the world that we live in today, nothing is ever perfect. So I think that we're very open to having a vigorous discussion across the board, Senate Democrats as well as Republicans, my colleagues on the other side of the chamber, with the Assembly, as well as with the governor. I know folks will float, whether it's internally, I haven't seen anything as of yet, or externally, whether it's through the ballot initiative process, whether it's tobacco, whether it's some variants of a split roll tax, whether it's an oil extraction tax of some sort, or any other type of tax out there, whether it's some version of Prop 30 extension post 2019. I think it does deserve a vigorous debate because one, I want to be very, very clear, is we have to continue to grow this economy, separate and irrespective of any type of tax reform, any type of tax revenue enhancement, dialogue, debate, discussion. We still have to continue to move forward to move measures that actually grow this economy, irrespective of any type of tax debate. Because if folks at a tactical level put all their eggs in one basket, and whether it's through the legislative process or through the ballot initiative process, and whatever, even if there's a DEFCON 4 battle or if there's a gentleman's agreement, if you will, with any type of revenue enhancement, if it fails and the economy doesn't continue to grow with the sunset of 30, obviously it doesn't take a rocket scientist or economist to know that you will be, or we will be, in 2018, back at the table making cuts. So I think it does deserve vigorous, open debate. I'm looking forward to it, and that's what I'll say about that.
Question over here.
Hi, Senator
Hi,
Judy
Judy.
Lin with
Hi,
the
Judy.
Associated Press. You have laid out a comprehensive plan on higher education. The Speaker has a comprehensive plan, and yet there's a committee of two with Jerry Brown and Janet Napolitano. Do you feel like the committee should be committee of four?
Well, you know, I don't necessarily, you know, I can't speak on behalf of my good friend, Speaker Tony Atkins. I necessarily don't feel left out. I've had numerous conversations with President Janet Napolitano, as well as Chancellor Timothy White. Ultimately, whatever deal, if the deal is ever struck between these two individuals, Janet Napolitano and Governor Jerry Brown. And ultimately, it has to go through the legislative process. So whether it's a committee of two, ultimately it'll be a committee of four. Perhaps the narrative for theatrics is a committee of two, but at the end of the day, it will be a committee of four. And what we're looking at on behalf of the California State Senate is to take a comprehensive view, a holistic view of the crisis dealing with higher education. Not a piecemeal, siloed approach, but to deal with this issue once and for all with accessibility, affordability, and getting these young students to graduate on time. Now, we have an access issue, obviously, because not everyone has a real opportunity to gain access to either a UC school or to a Cal State University school. But if we can succeed in getting you accessibility, once you're in the system, the question becomes, can you actually afford to stay in the system? So the issue is affordability as well. Lastly, if we can get affordability and make it a reality, then we have to make sure that you can complete your studies on time. Now, the average graduation rate for a Cal State University system student is roughly about 6.4 years. It is probably longer for students who are first-time students, college students, students from immigrant families, students who are single mothers or single parents with children. And the reason why they take mostly longer than 6.4 years is because they either are holding 2 or 3 jobs, and they incur more student debt with the loans that they have to take out because they don't have the financial wherewithal to complete their studies, on a timely fashion. As part of SB 15, we have a completion incentive grant that would incentivize a student at the Cal State system to graduate in 4 years if they take 15 units per semester. Now, when I talked about the total cost of education, it's not just tuition, it's your books, it's your transportation, either your gas or your bus pass. It's food, it's money to pay rent, or pay rent at home or an apartment that you may be sharing, or you may be a single mother. They need the resources to graduate on time. The way we view it in the Senate Democratic Caucus is we view it through economic growth. 10 years fast forward in 2025, as the PPIC poll study has pointed out, we'll have 1 million less BAs in the state of California. That will hurt our economy and our economic growth. So we need to get these kids to graduate on time so they can enter the workforce and generate revenue and get a good job. At the same time, once they do that, on the back end, on the front end, we open up the slot for this student so a student can come in. So it's about economic growth, and we're taking this very seriously. We've made the proposal public already. It's for scrutiny for editorial boards up and down the state of California, as well as the Cal State system, the Department of Finance, the LAO. We believe we put forward a very thoughtful, a well designed plan that is not piecemeal, that's very realistic, and it will have a major impact, a positive impact on the economic growth of California by ensuring that we can give these kids, again, accessibility, affordability, and completing their to graduate on a timely fashion.
Question at the back here.
Senator Rich Eisen with the Capital Journal. Your predecessor was really good about meeting with the press on a regular basis. You said you really look forward to working with us and helping us share information with the public. Are you willing to commit to doing the same and having regular press avails with all of us?
I will. Obviously, I became pro tem a few months ago, to be exact, October 15th, when I was mostly in Los Angeles and not here in Sacramento. Obviously, we've had some organizational challenges within the institution, and because I've been really focused on a lot of the internal dynamics of the institution itself, I haven't had a real opportunity to get out with the press. But I do look forward to having, if not weekly, perhaps bi-monthly sessions with the press. I know that my predecessor, and you make reference to my good friend, President Pro Tem Darrell Steinberg. He made himself available. I think I don't even think it was weekly. I think it was every day. Yeah, in the hallway, in the men's room. Land Park at the golf, course, at the Tower Cafe. I'm not a local person, so I'm not here on weekends, mostly, but we're going to make every attempt to do so.
Right over here.
Senator John Myers from KQED. I will not chase you into the bathroom to ask the question. Can you talk a little bit about the evolving on new relationship you have with the governor? I mean, you've known him before, but now as the leader of the Senate, and in particular on the issues of austerity and the wealth gap and people who are struggling. Can you tell me what you think he gets about that? He was criticized in the fall campaign as living a life of privilege by his Republican challenger. Do you think the governor understands what working folks are going through?
Well, to answer the first question, I think the governor has been a great leader for the state of California. He and I have a very good relationship. It's a constructive relationship. So far, it's been a collaborative relationship, and I mean it within the context of a state senator, not so much as of yet as a pro tem from peer to peer. That's a different dynamic than being a senator and one of 40 with my colleagues in the Senate caucus. I can't say to you that we're close. I don't know who's close to the governor other than his wife, Ann Brown. We've known folks who've known him for decades, 30, 40, 50 years. And I don't know if they're necessarily close to him. I'm keenly aware of those types of dynamics. I have a role and I have a responsibility to represent the values of my Democratic caucus, and I plan to do so when we enter negotiations with the governor. I do think the world of him. We spent some time just recently in Mexico City, meeting with the president of Mexico, and that was the first time we actually had an opportunity, other than one-on-one meetings, downstairs in a horseshoe. It was actually the first time we had a lot of just alone time, whether it was in the car, driving the horrendous traffic from meeting to meeting, or just in the airport hangar, just he and I just, literally just kicking back on the couches by ourselves, just talking. It's actually the first time we had downtime to not talk about policy, not talk about elections, not talk about global issues, but we talked about philosophy. We talked about Hobbes and Thoreau, and the Peloponnesian War and Socrates, and I know he likes that, and we talked a lot about the Peloponnesian War and Socrates, I'm looking forward to the relationship I have with him.
The second part is, does he get it?
Does he get what?
Let me restate it again. In the fall campaign, he was criticized as living a life of personal privilege, that he didn't get what working people were going through. Do you think that's fair? Do you think he understands?
Well, I know there's critics of the governor right now with regards to his perspective when it comes to human services, and obviously, the critique derives from his budget and what it looks like. I think that perhaps the governor just needs some more education so that he can, better understand what's happening in California. I'll give the governor credit on some things. He wanted to have lunch one day, and I invited him to Boyle Heights, and he came out to Boyle Heights, to Serenata Garibaldi, and he came, and we had lunch in Boyle Heights. And again, there are critiques out there of the governor. I understand it. I'm looking forward to engaging him on this issue.
Over here.
Laurel Rosenhall with the Sacramento Bee.
Hi, Laurel.
Hi. So in his speech a couple weeks ago, the governor laid out really ambitious environmental goals for the state, and I know that's a priority for you as well. I'm wondering if you can give us any sense if your caucus is planning any legislation that would sort of move towards some of those renewable energy and other goals that the governor laid out earlier this month.
Laurel, the governor laid out, as you made reference to in his speech, his inaugural speech, an ambitious 50-50-50. 50% increase in the renewable portfolio, the RPS, 50% reduction in fossil fuels from vehicles, and 50%, which was a little sort of vague and with not too specific, but 50% energy efficiency. Energy efficiency, and it's whether public buildings or commercial private property or a combination thereof to reduce, obviously, energy reduction. I spent about 5 days in Lima, Peru, at the COP, the COP20, Conference of Parties 20. And my takeaways from COP20 were the following: that the world is watching very closely what happens in California. The world is watching California and looking for leadership. Given the severe dysfunction in Washington, D.C., and it doesn't seem like the gridlock is going to get any better in Washington, D.C., countries such as China, India, Mexico, and elsewhere are watching very closely what we do here in California. And because of that, I commend the governor for moving forward with an ambitious 50-50-50 plan. I plan on working very closely with him to move forward these more so implementation targets dealing with climate change. I give the governor nothing but kudos, when it comes to this issue. I was elated when he articulated it in his speech, and I'm looking forward to rolling up my sleeves and working with him.
Question over here.
Yep, Steve Greenhut with UT San Diego. I'm just wondering if you could be more specific on how you'll analyze the effectiveness of past programs. Will it have any teeth in it, and how does that square with your shutting down the accountability office?
There was, can you, Steve, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you were talking at the end of your talk about analyzing the effectiveness of past programs,
yeah,
accountability, and I'm wondering, can you be a little more specific, and will there be any teeth in it? What will you do when you find programs that aren't working, and how do you
sure.
square that with the shutting down of the office?
Let me underscore that that oversight and accountability is not the job of a handful of folks that you can count on one hand that are in one single room. Accountability, transparency, and oversight is the job of the California State Senate, the senators who head up their policy committees as well as fiscal committees. Now, we have a number of state agencies and departments, obviously, so the focus and the idea is effectiveness, efficiency. Is the taxpayer getting the most bang for the buck? Now, that remains to be seen, but the chairs of the policy committees have been charged already to move forward with these oversight committee hearings. Obviously, public safety, they will deal with what is germane to their respective jurisdiction, BMP, elections. I'll give you another example. Senator Ben Allen, the new chair of elections, will be tackling the issue of low voter turnout. Why? Is it just voter apathy? Do county registers sit on the ball? Are some counties early adopters of PAVs, or some other counties just sit on it because it's a cultural issue? Is it a monetary issue? Whatever it is, we know that democracy is not at its fullest in the greatest state in the country because we have a low voter participation rate. The reasons why, what is going on? Is it a money issue, or is it a cultural issue? Is it an issue of bureaucrats are just dragging their feet? We pass laws, and I think, to some degree, I understand the constructive critique that at times perhaps there are too many laws that are being passed, and we're not slowing down a tad bit to say, hey, this bill just passed. What is the effectiveness? What is the impact? Can you verify? Can you quantify the positive results that this measure was looking for since the inception of the measure? I think it's time that we do that. I believe in accountability, and I believe that you should benchmark and you should be able to verify and have outcomes that are very clearly defined. I don't think we do that too often, and I think that with the state agencies, DTSC, Departments of Parks and Recreation, DPR, for example, there are two agencies that are in the crosshairs right now of the California State Legislature. I think it's good that we play a role where we demand accountability, transparency, and also going back to my comment with regards to it's not the sole domain of a handful of individuals in one room. You know, as policy chairs, obviously, you're vetting measures that are coming before your committee. But also, too, a role of a policy chair is to vet measures that have already been codified into law and to measure the effectiveness. One thing is I'm keenly aware of, we can pass laws. We can pass all kinds of laws. It's up to the public to either follow the law, to disregard the law and ignore it altogether, or, as we know in public safety, break the law. You know, but do state agencies actually enforce the law, implement the law, and ensure that it's actually following the letter of the law, the spirit of the legislator? Sometimes bureaucracies and bureaucrats do something entirely different with a piece of legislation. It looks nothing like the spirit of the original intent of the measure itself. So this is an opportunity for us to change that culture and go a little deeper, not just moving forward measures, which we will do. We will do that. It's not in lieu of, but to also go a little deeper into accountability and transparency of the many, many state agencies that we have here in the state of California.
Okay, and I have a question from over here, and I'm sorry to those who've flagged me. It's going to have to be our last question.
Oh, geez.
Hi, Jessica Califatti from
Hi,
the
Jessica.
San Jose Mercury News. You said earlier that you're committed to expanding childcare options for low-income families, but this is something that other Democrats in the Assembly and the Senate have had great difficulty with, both on the child care side of things and on expanding preschool or transitional kindergarten. That was something that was a big priority of your predecessor, and he didn't get very far with it last year. What's going to be different for you?
Well, you know, when I was previously in the Assembly, you know, I was the chief author of a similar measure, which found the veto of the governor. I know in previous attempts, I believe at one time then Speaker John Perez authored a very similar measure. I know last year, with regards to child care specifically, taking child care outside of the general fund and putting it into under Prop 98 was an attempt that then President Pro Tem Darrell Steinberg attempted to do. And I know the track record, the historic track record has not been very good. You know, it's meant the pen of a veto, you know, from successive governors, not just Governor Brown, but, you know, Governor Schwarzenegger. This is a very serious issue. The way I view it is if women cannot find childcare for their child or for their children, then they simply cannot go out and participate in the workforce. And the way I view it in a very different frame. I view it that we have to give every opportunity for these women who are struggling, who want to participate in the economic workforce, but cannot do so because they don't have the financial wherewithal within their own pocket to secure what is very, very expensive and challenging. It's challenging for middle-class women. If you are a lower middle class or a woman, single mother who's just struggling with barely passable living wages, and you cannot find daycare, you know, or child care for your child, you're simply not going to go into the workforce. In a district such as mine, that's statistically speaking, empirically, I believe it's the second poorest district in the state of California. There are many women who struggle, and they figure it out somehow, some way, but the results are not pretty. The results are not pretty. So I do believe that if we invest in high-quality child care, that you allow women to enter the workforce simultaneously when you're providing high-quality child care education. These children who are primarily of a lower economic strata, once they enter kindergarten, they are prepared to learn. Because oftentimes the discrepancies between the inequities that exist between the have and the have-nots, it didn't start, you know, when someone, you know, drops out of high school. They didn't drop out of high school some catastrophic event that took place in 11th grade or 10th grade or 9th grade or 8th grade. It starts all the way from birth. It starts all the way from the first day of kindergarten, where it's clear that, you know, if you're born in a certain zip code, statistically speaking, by far and large, the empirical data is there. It's been demonstrated for the last 100 years. You will do well in life. If you were born in other zip codes, the statistics are there. Of course, there's outliers. Of course, there's a handful of folks. You know, one can argue, look at Kevin de León. But I wasn't the smartest individual. I wasn't a valedictorian by no stretch of the imagination. There were policies that were put forth by legislators that argued vigorously on the Senate floor as well as the Assembly floor that gave me an opportunity to succeed. So what we're trying to do is just to provide opportunity, provide a leg up so these individuals can be part of the economic workforce. This is not welfare. You know, this is not a feel-good public policy program. This is about really investing in high-quality education, childcare, so these women can participate in the economic workforce and generate revenue and take care of the families, and simultaneously making sure that these children, when they enter kindergarten, they're ready to learn. They don't have ants in the pants. They can actually count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. They actually know the colors. How many kids do we know at the lower economic strata, once they enter first or second or third grade, they still haven't learned how to read? Because once you enter third grade, if you haven't learned how to read, because once you go beyond the third grade, you're reading to learn. If you haven't learned how to read yet, then obviously it's very clear. The data shows it's all downhill from there. So once we talk about the prison population and the dropouts, and, you know, it's very clear. The data doesn't lie. Numbers are numbers, and the facts are the facts. So that's why the way I view it, the way the Senate Democrats view it, is this is imperative if we're going to invest in human capital to provide these women an opportunity to succeed in the workforce and therefore contribute to the overall well-being of our economy.
Thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.